How's it going? Today I'm going to be drinking Jack Daniel's Tennessee whiskey for the first time, which as a whole I am very excited to do. Jack Daniel's, after all, is one of the most ubiquitous whiskey brands around the entire world, and so as such it comes as no surprise that I have heard a lot about this brand. Some good things, some bad things, I do want to acknowledge, but I've heard a lot nonetheless. And so as such have decided that it's finally time for me to try Jack Daniel's. How will it be? What will it be like? Will I enjoy it? I don't know, but we're going to be finding all that out and more during this video today. I went to my local liquor store a little bit earlier and picked up this handle right here for $28.95 USD. It is in specific the classic, the standard variety of Jack Daniel's, the Jack Daniel's Old No. 7 Tennessee whiskey. And for my $28.95 USD that I spent on this bottle, I got myself 750 milliliters of Tennessee whiskey with an ABV of 40%, a proof of 80, and one that has been aged for roughly 4 years from what I've read online at least. I do suppose, without further ado, after I thank the sponsor of today's video, I should probably go ahead and quickly cover the packaging of the Jack Daniel's bottle I have with me today. Then after that, I should probably go ahead and get the cap all off, go ahead and smell Jack Daniel's for the very first time, then go ahead and pour some in a glass, take a sip, find out just how this stuff really is when drank straight. And after I'm done drinking this stuff straight, I'm gonna find out just how it is as a mixer as well. And after all of that, I'm gonna give Jack Daniel's, this variety of Jack Daniel's, a rating, and I'm gonna let y'all know whether I think it's actually worth the money or not. Will Jack Daniel's actually be a good whiskey that stands on its own, or will it be a whiskey that kinda stands on the brand, on its name? I don't know, but I'm very curious to find out. I am super excited to try Jack Daniel's for the very first time. This is something that I've been needing to do for quite a while now. But before we go ahead and hop into the packaging of this bottle, as said, first off, I need to thank the sponsor of today's video, which is me, because my new poetry book, Poems to Read While Smoking Cigarettes, is out now. It's available on Amazon for $14.99, and it is a fantastic purchase that I do highly recommend. The poems within this book are not good poems, but they are poems to read while smoking cigarettes, and if you guys are interested in reading my new poetry book, Poems to Read While Smoking Cigarettes, make sure to go check it out on Amazon. Links are in the description and comments down below. And yeah, make sure to go check out my new poetry book. Well, let's go ahead and hop right into the packaging of this handle of Jack Daniel's though. And we can see it has an extremely iconic look to it. It's got the squared bottle with the round top, but it's not just straight. It has a little bit of a curvature to it as well. Overall, the bottle design, the bottle shape for Jack Daniel's is iconic all by itself, in my personal opinion. Like yes, the label makes it even more iconic, but just the bottle itself, the squared off bottle, is already iconic as is, and is already instantly recognizable as a bottle of Jack Daniel's, to me at least, I will acknowledge. Let's go ahead and go, I think, top to bottom though. We can see we start off with the cap up here. It's a round black cap. Of course, we get some black plastic right here. I'll cover the details on it in just a moment. And we can see that it goes to glass just about probably right here or so. And that glass starts off a little bit thin, but gets a little bit thicker and then thins out again. And then we get a little bit of a ridge right here. And then we get what looks like some sort of like, I'm trying to think of the right way to put this, but it's like the base for like a Roman pillar or something like that. We get some sort of like connector base right there, and then it goes to the squared off design with rounded edges, but where the label is in a little bit of a divot. It starts off, and we can see it pretty distinctly like this, we can see it kind of bulges out just a little bit, becomes flat right there, so the label is all flat, and then it bulges out just a little bit again as you get towards the bottom. And yeah, that's very much the look of the bottle itself. Very iconic, very Jack Daniels, and it is an extremely recognizable look, if I do say so myself. Very iconic in my opinion. Let's go ahead and start going over the actual details though, including the label right here and all of the wording and details up here as well. So let's go ahead and start off with the top of the lid. We can see, is that embossed or is that recessed? That is embossed onto the matte cap. So we get a little bit of a glossy text on that matte cap right there, and that's embossed. As said, it just says JD right there, standing for Jack Daniels, I assume. And that's all we get on the cap right there. The cap is covered up by a black plastic that you have to rip off to actually get this open, and we can see towards the bottom of that black plastic, it just says Old Number 7 brand right there, which is the variety name for this, well, specific variety of Jack Daniels. We can see over here there's some cursive lettering, or just fancy looking lettering, just says on guard until seal is broken. So I guess they're saying this bottle is on guard until the seal is broken, and then after that it's chilling because you can then start drinking it. I don't know exactly what they're really trying to say with that, honestly. That's kind of an odd thing to say. It's kind of a weird thing to say, kind of an odd thing, but it says that nonetheless, and that is kind of amusing. On guard, what are we in France in the I was about to say 1970s, but like 1790s or something like that. On guard. That was a horrible joke. I do apologize. But we can also see there's some numbers right there in white as well. I assume that's just some sort of bottle number or something like that. And moving on below that, we cover the glass details we've already seen, but one that we haven't actually spoken about quite yet as well. And we can see embossed onto the bottle itself, it just says Jack Daniels right there. And that's something we don't just see on the front of the bottle, which is what we're looking at right now, but we also see it on this side, and that side as well. On every single side of this bottle, it says Jack Daniels right there, embossed into the glass, which is pretty neat if I do say so myself. And moving on below that, we get the actual iconic Jack Daniels Old Number 7 variety label, which has a background that is black, and it's got white details all over it. That is the standard look for this variety, for Jack Daniels as a brand as a whole, for their unflavored products at least. And overall, it's a very classic look, I will acknowledge. Is it timeless? I would say it's definitely a little bit sort of oldie-fashioned in my personal opinion, but I believe that that is intentional. I don't think that this is a timeless design per se. I think it's designed to look ye oldie-fashioned, and I do think it does succeed to some extent at that with all of the details up here and whatnot kind of thing. It definitely succeeds at looking a little bit more old-fashioned than not, which I think is precisely their goal. As said, though, we can see there's some white curvy lines adding some detail to the label right here and down the sides along the bottom as well. In the middle, at the top right here, it just says Jack Daniels right there. That's not embossed or anything like that, but does it have a slightly different sort of feeling to the text than the rest of the label? I would say the rest of the label is very much just printed paper, but this is a little bit more glossy. The Jack Daniels text is just a little bit more glossy, even if it isn't truly embossed in my personal opinion. But yeah, no, just says Jack Daniels right there, very iconic logo design, of course. And right under that, we get what looks like a little bit of a seal or some sort of crest right there, and we just get that in an oval, almost looks like a cigar band, sort of like crest right there or something like that kind of thing, I gotta admit. But we just got a little bit of an oval right there, some squiggly lines going all the way around, making it look a little bit more fancy, even though it's really just details for detail's sake. And in the middle just says Old Number 7 brand right there. Under this just says Quality Tennessee Sour Mash Whiskey, just right there, with alternating bold and small text. The quality text is small, then it says Tennessee in a sort of cursive print font, and that's bold, and then it says sour mash, and then whiskey right there in another bold text. So they're alternating to really drive your attention home to specific details. The Jack Daniels text is the biggest, so that's where they really want your eyes to go to. Then this is kind of next, as it's right underneath, and then you see Tennessee whiskey right there, and even though there's words in between those two words, you don't really notice them just because they're smaller and not as bold. They're really doing a good job of driving your eyes to certain areas with this bottle, in my personal opinion. Under the Tennessee whiskey text, it just says distilled and bottled by Jack Daniel Distillery, Lynchburg, Tennessee, USA, established and registered in 1866. And then under that, it just says 40% alcohol by volume, 80 proof, 750 milliliters, just right there. And that's really all that's going on with the very front of the bottle. There are some details on either side as well, because this label does wrap around the bottle just a little bit. As we can see, they've got some market segmentation spiels and other information on either side to sell you on this brand just a little bit more. So let's go ahead and cover those in just a moment. But overall, how does the front of this bottle look? Very iconic. It's Jack Daniels. I mean, like, what more can I say than that? It's got the whole sort of ye olde style. It's very iconic. I wouldn't call it timeless per se. I wouldn't call it a beautiful work of art of packaging by any means, but it's Jack Daniels. And honestly, that's really all it needs, because it's Jack Daniels. This is what people see as being Jack Daniels. It's iconic, it's ubiquitous, and it's Jack Daniels. This is, without a doubt, one of the most iconic pieces of alcohol packaging of all time, in my opinion at least. Gotta give him credit where credit is due, for sure, for sure. Let's go ahead and cover the text up here and the sides of the bottle now, though. And we can see the text up here is in white, of course, just says every drop made in Tennessee. And then under that, it just says Jack Daniels Old Time Distillery. They're really trying to push the whole oldie thing, that's for sure. Just says Tennessee, and then they've got the zip code 37352. Just says it's the oldest registered distillery in the United States, supposedly. Apparently, it was placed into the National Register of Historic Places by the United States government. And we can see an image of the Jack Daniels Distillery just right there in white with black detailing. And then above that, it just says Tennessee whiskey made the Jack Daniel way for 7 generations. Old number 7 brand, trademark, registered U.S. Patent Office. And then under that, it just says, under all of that in the corner right here, it just says that this stuff is made with cave spring water, yeast, corn, rye, and barley. And on their website, they do say that the Jack Daniels number 7 brand whiskey is gluten-free. Whether the flavors, like the Tennessee, like Apple Fire, or any of the other Jack Daniel flavored whiskeys are gluten-free, I don't know. But this specific variety is gluten-free, apparently, and that is very much worth mentioning, as that is an allergy that I personally have, and some of y'all may have as well, so I think it's definitely worth a mention, that's for sure. But that's really all that's going on this side of the bottle. Moving on to the other side, they have more information to sell you on Jack Daniels even more. Just says, Mr. Jack's reputation was built on fierce independence and steadfast integrity. It's why he established the first registered distillery in the United States of America, and why he insisted on using only the finest ingredients to make his whiskey. Today, we work to keep his legacy alive. So they're really trying to sell you on like the history of the brand and everything like that kind of thing. Really trying to push the historical artification of Jack Daniels as a nameplate. Under all of that, it just says, every day we make it, we'll make it the best we can. Which is good. I would certainly hope so, I will acknowledge. And we have a little image of, I assume, Mr. Jack himself right there. And, yep, that's all that's going on this side of the bottle. Whether Jack Daniels is actually that old of a brand or not, I have no idea, in all honesty. I didn't do any brand research about Jack Daniels before this video. Maybe I should have, but I didn't. Either way, that's really what they're trying to sell you on. They're really trying to sell you on the history of the brand, and that's what's all over the bottle, and that's what we see on this side right here once again. Moving on to the very back of the bottle, we can see it's really just informational, black background. Once again, just says old number 7 brand right there. Under that, it just says distilled and bottled by Jack Daniel Distillery, Lynchburg, Tennessee, USA. We got the government warning just saying that women should not drink alcohol when pregnant, and that you should not drink alcohol when driving. And then under that, we just get, like, you can get 5 cents back for the bottle, got the barcode, says 21 plus, has a website and everything like that, and yep, that's all that's going on with it. Moving on to the very bottom of the bottle, there's nothing really going on at all, just some little tiny details, but nothing of note. And yeah, that's the look of this bottle. Overall, very iconic, very notable, ubiquitous, recognizable. It's Jack Daniels, everybody knows it. That's what this is. Really, it's super iconic packaging. Gotta give them the credit where credit is due. It might not be my favorite looking packaging ever. In fact, it's not even in my top 10 or 20. I'm not really the biggest fan of the looking of this packaging, stylization-wise. I'm not really the biggest fan of the look of this packaging or the look of this label, to be precise, I will acknowledge. It just doesn't fit my aesthetic preferences. However, this is Jack Daniels, and this is one of the most iconic pieces of alcohol packaging design ever made. And it works. I gotta give them credit where credit is due, kind of thing. It's not my personal aesthetic style, but it is, without a doubt, super iconic, and it's a great, fantastic piece of packaging. Love to see it. Love to see it, I gotta admit. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get this plastic wrap up here all off, though, and let's go ahead and take a smell of Jack Daniels for the very first time. So, got my knife. Let's go and see if I can get this plastic wrap all off. Let's see if I can do that. I hope so. I hope I can. Maybe I should grab a thumbnail real quick. That might be a good idea. Let's actually do a thumbnail real quick before I go ahead and get the wrap all off, just in case. So let's do that just real quick. Well, hopefully one of those will do. Let's go ahead and see if I can get this plastic off, though. Let's see if I can. It is kind of a firm plastic that is not wanting to come off very well. I don't want to make sure I don't have this plastic go like all over the ground. I don't want to be littering it or anything like that. So I'm trying to be careful about it, but yeah, this plastic wrap ain't being very nice to me. I'm going to use my knife. I have my Kershaw Scallion with me today. I'm pointing it towards myself, which is not good. I really shouldn't be doing that, but got it off. Once I actually kind of got a good grip, it came off pretty easily. Can't complain about that, that is for sure. And there's like an ant on my leg. Let me get that ant off real quick. I'm kind of sitting in the middle of the grass, so ain't no surprise there's ants in the grass, I will acknowledge, but they are there nonetheless. Let's go ahead and put that in my backpack. Don't want to be littering the plastic. And, well, without further ado, let's go ahead and get this lid off, and let's go ahead and smell Jack Daniels for the very first time. One thing I forgot to mention at the very beginning of this video, I've never actually drank Tennessee whiskey for the very first time either. This is going to be my very first time drinking Tennessee. I'm getting my words all jumbled up. I think I need a little bit of alcohol. I've never drank Tennessee whiskey before, is basically what I'm trying to say. I've only ever really had, like, bourbon, some other type of whiskey, and Japanese whiskey. So I'm expecting this to smell a little bit different. Quite possibly. Maybe. I don't know. But, yeah. Figured it was worth mentioning that I've never drank Tennessee whiskey before, along with having never had Jack Daniels before. Well, without further ado, let's go ahead and crack this open and see just what it actually smells like. What will Tennessee whiskey, what will Jack Daniels actually smell like? First time smelling it. Let's give it a go. Okay. It smells good. I mean, like, it smells good. I'm not gonna lie. I'm getting... Whew, what am I smelling? It's surprisingly it's a surprisingly mild smell. I'm not gonna deny. It is a surprisingly mild smell. It's not super up in your face by any means. I was definitely expecting it to be a little bit more up in my face. Since it is a little bit more mild than not, maybe it's gonna be a little bit smoother than not. We'll find out. I am used to drinking 100 proof or 101 proof whiskey these days, so since this is 80 proof, I am expecting it to be a bit smoother than what I'm used to. And it definitely smells like it may very well be. Overall, the smell I'm getting is very much that of, I would say, a sweet caramel sort of smell. Yeah, sweet caramel. Excuse me, sweet caramel. A little bit of brown sugar, I want to say. And I want to say some sort of fruity smell as well. I want to say there's some sort of fruity smell in there. there's almost like, yeah, some sort of like citrus smell in there too. It's not quite like apple. It's more like apricot? Huh? I wasn't expecting any sort of citrus fruity smell in there, I'll acknowledge, but that's kind of what I'm getting. I feel like I'm getting a little bit of an apricot sort of smell coming off of the Jack Daniels. Interesting. Okay. I would say smell-wise, the Jack Daniels classic variety, the old number 7, it very much has a smell of that of a sweet caramel, sort of brown sugar with an undertone of like a little bit of like a citrus fruit, almost sort of apricot going on, I would say, personally. I'm not exactly sure. Maybe it's just me really grasping for smell. There's really not too much going on by any means, but yeah, that's kind of what I'm getting based off of just the one smell from the bottle. I'm gonna go and put the lid back on real quick, and I'm gonna get my glass out, and I'm gonna go ahead and pour myself some in my glass, and we are gonna find out what it smells like in the glass. Sometimes whiskey, the smell of it changes once you pour it out of the bottle, so let's see if that happens today. And I've got my little tiny Pizza Hut cup right here with me today. Let's go and pour my first ever glass of Jack Daniels. I think that should work. And let's go ahead and put the lid back on the bottle. Grab myself a little bit of a thumbnail real quick. Got to do it, of course. And now, without further ado, let's take a little bit of smell. Okay, definitely in the glass, it's a little bit more of an intense smell. I definitely smell, just in general, a little bit more alcohol. It's still pretty mild, though, especially in comparison to a lot of what I've been drinking lately. But overall, I would say the smell is still very mild. Like, it definitely got a little bit more potent. The alcohol definitely aspect of the smell especially got a little bit more potent. But really, in all honesty, it is a very, very, very mild smell. I'm really not getting anything of note coming from the scent notes, honestly. In fact, I would actually say I'm getting less intricacies from the scent than I'm getting, or than I got when just straight up smelling the bottle. Okay, interesting. Yeah, I'm really not getting much of anything, honestly. Genuinely, I'm really not getting much of anything. I would say if I am getting anything, though, I am still getting very much that sort of caramel, brown sugar smell. And I would say there's still a little bit of that sort of apricot citrus going on in there as well, a little bit of that fruity sort of smell going on in there, but really it's super mild. It really is super mild. And that's really all there is to it. So now that I've smelled Jack Daniels for the very first time, I think it's actually time for me to drink some for the very first time. How will my first sip of Jack Daniels be? Well, there's only one way to find out. And that's to find out. So without further ado, let's get to drinking. Cheers, y'all. Yes, sir. You know what I'm saying? Oh yeah, that burns. That ain't smooth. Maybe it will get smooth over the next couple sips. But that first sip, it didn't make me go, whew. But it definitely burns the back of my throat just a little bit. The taste is both distinct and not distinct at the same time. And while it did flow over my tongue, while I did have some of the whiskey going over my taste buds, I'm not really getting anything. It was there for such a short period of time that I guess I'm not really able to register it. I can definitely say that, okay, with that second sip, I'm getting the flavor a little bit more. It's smoothed out a little bit as well. I would definitely say there's some sort of citrus fruity taste in there, for sure. There's definitely a sort of citrus fruity taste in there. Granny Smith apple apricot is kinda, No, it's very apple-y, but at the same time, there's something else going on besides apple. I'll have to think more on it. But what I can say is that this is a little bit different than whiskey I've tried previously. I mean, like, of course, previously I've tried bourbon, I've tried Japanese whiskey, I've tried other whiskey as well, kind of thing. I've tried one Scotch. Never tried Tennessee whiskey before, though. Never tried Tennessee whiskey, and this is definitely a little bit different from what I'm used to. There's definitely still that very recognizable whiskey flavor going on to me, kind of thing. There's still very much that sort of caramel, brown sugar going on, for sure, no question. But the caramel, I would say, is less pronounced than some of the bourbons I've tried. The brown sugar is about normal. And I would say that other flavor, that sort of fruity flavor that I described, is really a leading factor of interest in the flavor right now to me. Not too bad, though. No, not too bad. Nothing crazy. I've had 3 sips so far. I'm not noticing any sort of flavor depth really building up as I'm sipping on it. Not that I was really expecting that from Jack Daniel's, honestly. I may expect that from, like, if I got one of their, like, 10-year or 14-year aged bottles or something along those lines. I would probably be expecting that at that point. This is their standard cheap variety, though. This is the Jack Daniel's variety. It's not one of their special high-quality editions. I wasn't really expecting any sort of depth of flavor or crazy depth of flavor, or any sort of flavor change as I continue sipping. And that's not really what I'm experiencing right now, I do want to acknowledge. And definitely the first sip I took, that was the roughest of the bunch I had. Like, I know I just reacted to it. I just kind of took too big of a sip. That was my bad. That wasn't really the whiskey in all honesty, but it is definitely smoother than what I'm used to, for sure. It's definitely, I would say, not the smoothest whiskey I've ever had. I've had smoother. But the Jack Daniel's is pretty dang smooth. It's pretty dang smooth. Overall, flavor-wise, I see why people say Jack Daniel's and Coca-Colas are really good. I gotta try Jack and Coke in the future, no question in my mind. I absolutely gotta. That sort of brown sugar flavor coming from the Jack Daniel's, I think it's gonna pair amazingly with Coca-Cola. I see why people say Jack and Cokes are just that good now. I haven't even tried a Jack and Coke, and I'm already like, that stuff sounds amazing. I'm pretty sure it's going to be fantastic. So I definitely got to try a Jack and Coke sometime in the future for sure. Because with the flavor profile going on from Jack Daniel's, I think that's going to be really good. And that sort of fruity flavor is why I think it's going to combine really well with the Coca-Cola. Yeah, I got to try a Jack and Coke. I ain't going to lie. I got to try a Jack and Coke. I have never had one before. Never tried Jack Daniel's, never tried a Jack and Coke. I gotta try a Jack and Coke for sure. I would say, though, flavor-wise, it's very mild. And there's really not a lot of depth to the flavor. Kind of the flavor you get is the flavor you get. And don't get me wrong, I mean, like, you take a couple sips, you notice a little bit more. That's really kind of all that is going on, though. The flavor doesn't really change as you continue sipping away. You don't really notice anything prominently more that you didn't notice at the very beginning in the first 2 sips or so. It's a pretty standard, just baseline flavor. A good flavor, a really nice flavor that I do really like and I think is going to be great with Coca-Cola. And honestly, it's not bad when drank straight either. I was honestly kind of afraid that Jack Daniel's is going to be really mid, honestly. And for the price, there's better options out there. I'm just going to be straight up with y'all. There are far superior options, flavor depth-wise and quality-wise, over Jack Daniel's for a cheaper price. Evan Williams Bottled & Bond. I think Wild Turkey 101, I think, is cheaper than Jack Daniel's too, kind of thing. Both of those, in my opinion, are higher quality. They have a more interesting flavor to them, and they're cheaper than Jack Daniel's. But at the beginning, before this video, I was a little bit afraid that Jack Daniel's was honestly not going to be good. That it was just the name, and that was kind of how it was. I was kind of afraid it was going to be like the Marlboro of whiskey. which, in my opinion, Marlboro these days is not really a brand built on quality. It's instead a brand built on name recognition, and they've just been going with that for the last, 30 years, ever since becoming, the biggest selling brand in the United States in the 1970s. I say last 30 years, last 50 years. I was afraid Jack Daniels was kind of going to be the same way, and kind of is to some extent, but not fully. Not fully. It's not as egregious as Marlboro, in my opinion, which Marlboro's, in my opinion, for a lot of their varieties these days, I gotta say, one, they're too expensive for what they are. Two, there's a chemical taste, but they're still very iconic because they're Marlboros, and they're still running only on their name, not on the quality of the product at all. I was kind of afraid that Jack Daniels was kind of just running on the name, and the quality was gonna be so mid. The quality ain't bad. Overpriced, in my opinion, yes, absolutely. I do think the classic Jack Daniels variety is overpriced, and I think that's just due to the fact that Jack Daniels is a name. They have an audience that knows Jack Daniels, that wants Jack Daniels, that is willing to pay for Jack Daniels, and so, of course, they're going to have the price be a little bit higher than competitors that might be able to offer a better quality product at a cheaper price. And there are competitors that offer a better quality product, at a cheaper price, in my personal opinion. None of those competitors, though, taste quite like Jack Daniels, one. And two, they ain't Jack Daniels. So, yeah, in regards to general whiskey pricing, I do think the standard number 7 variety of Jack Daniels, it is a bit overpriced. It's not massively egregious, but, I mean, this 750 milliliter bottle was $5 or $6 more than a comparatively sized Evan Williams Bottled in Bond bottle, which is one of my favorite whiskeys. So it's this product itself is not bad. I want to go and say Jack Daniels as a product is solid. It's nothing crazy. But it's good. But compared to others, which are cheaper, this stuff is only as equally as good as stuff that is $5 or $6 cheaper, in my opinion. It's good, but Jack Daniels, it's overpriced. What a surprise. It's a name brand. It's going to be overpriced. Very interesting, though. Very, very, very interesting, though. Definitely, I gotta admit, the mash is different than what I'm used to. It's got a fruity flavor to it, which is different. I can't say I've ever... Well, I have experienced a fruity flavor from one whiskey before. It's from the Suntory Old in Japan. That had a very orange flavor to it. But other than that, I can't say I've ever experienced any sort of fruity flavor from a whiskey. And I've never experienced any sort of fruity flavor like this from a whiskey. I would say there might be a little bit of dark chocolate going on in there, though. I just kind of didn't really think about it, but it's been there the whole time. But I would say there's a little bit of dark chocolate in there. Yeah, okay. Overall, I would say the flavor of the Jack Daniels Old Number 7 is very much that of a... Honestly, I feel like dark chocolate is kind of the most... How did I not think about dark chocolate until now? I'm glad I thought about it. I would say the flavor of the Jack Daniels Old Number 7 variety of whiskey is very much that of a dark chocolate, fruity, almost sort of Granny Smith apple, Fuji apple, yet at the same time apricot, citrus fruity taste with undertones of brown sugar and then a little bit of caramel, I would say. So yeah, overall, flavor-wise, from this bottle, I am getting, dark chocolate, citrusy, slightly sweet, slightly sour, fruity, Granny Smith apple, Fuji apple, apricot, sort of fruity flavor. Then brown sugar, sweet brown sugar, then caramel. And that's very much the overall distinct flavors I'm getting from Jack Daniels. That's kind of what I'm getting. No more, no less. Those are the flavors I'm getting from the Jack Daniel's Tennessee whiskey that I'm trying for the very first time today. Overall, when drank straight, how do I feel Jack Daniel's is? Well, as mentioned, I feel like it's overpriced. I do think just in general, Jack Daniel's, just having drank it straight, having experienced the flavor is nice. I actually quite like the flavor of Jack Daniel's. Me being critical about the price is not me being critical of the quality of the product. I just think it's too much money for what it is, but it is a good product. I do like this. This is good. I really like it, and it's different from what I've tried before. It's good, but it's too much for what it is. It is name brand. They're going to charge more. They very much are charging more, but it is too much for what it is, in my opinion. But even though Jack Daniel's is a little bit too pricey for what it is, if you ask me, is it nonetheless a good product? I would say it's pretty solid, and I think it's going to be even better when mixed into a drink. Jack Daniel's, as a sipper, is okay. I think the flavor profile is really nice and everything like that, but I have had far better whiskeys as sippers. I think where the classic Jack Daniel's variety shines is probably in a Jack and Coke or some other sort of mixer, if I had to hazard a guess. However, this is nonetheless, honestly, a surprisingly decent whiskey to drink straight. I honestly did not think Jack Daniel's was going to be very good to drink straight. It's not bad, though. It's not bad. Not the best I've ever had. Not as good as Evan Williams' Bottom Bond. But not bad. Not bad, I gotta admit. Let's go and find out how Jack Daniel's is as a mixer, though. As something to drink straight with the price factored into mind. How do I think this is drink straight, like rating-wise? I'd give it like a solid 7 out of 10. I'll give it a solid like 6 out of 10. Definitely 6.5. I was kind of like, do I want to give it like a 6 or a 7, or do I want to give it like I'm going to give it like a solid 6 or a 7. Solid 6.5, I think, is deserving for this as a something to drink straight. How will it be in a whiskey highball, though? Let's find out. Let's pour myself a little bit of a whiskey highball. I got myself a nice little bit of a buzz going. A little bit more whiskey. That'll do for my highball, I do think. And let's go ahead. Put the cap back on. The sun is going down, so got to make sure I don't take too much time. That just went everywhere. Ignore that. And let's go ahead and pour that just like that. Let the foam die down just a little bit. And I'm gonna grab myself just a little bit of a product out. Now, I gotta admit though, Jack Daniel's, when drank straight, it's definitely interesting. It was very different than what I was kind of expecting. I mean, like, what I'm used to from whiskey is very much out of a brown sugar caramel sort of flavor. A little bit of chocolate, you know, is definitely expected to some extent. But the chocolate in the Jack Daniel's is a bit different than what I've experienced before, kind of thing. I'm like, what I've experienced from a sort of chocolatey flavor in whiskey before was almost sort of a milky sort of dark chocolate. That, in the Jack Daniel's, on the other hand, was very much sort of a dark chocolate, almost sort of a bitter dark chocolate. I mean, like, yeah, when drank straight, Jack Daniel's is kind of bitter dark chocolate, sweet, fruity, citrusy, apple, Granny Smith apple, Fiji, a little bit of apricot going on kind of thing, a little bit of sourness as well. And then there's that brown sugar being sweet with a little bit of that caramel being sweet kind of thing. Very interesting combination of sweet, sour, bitter, savory, and sweet. When drank straight, Jack Daniel's ain't so bad, I ain't gonna lie. Overpriced. Ain't so bad, though. Ain't so bad. But overpriced. And not too bad roughness and smoothness wise either, kind of thing. It's definitely like, it took me off guard. Just a little bit with the first sip I had of the Jack Daniel's, but after that it was pretty smooth, I gotta admit. I mean, like, Jack Daniel's, the classic variety, it's not a bad sipper. I want to go and clarify. Is it super interesting? It's not the most interesting whiskey I've ever drank straight, I want to acknowledge. But can you sip it straight? Certainly a lot better to sip straight than a lot of other things I've tried, that's for sure. Yeah, I think a 6 to 7. Honestly, I give it a 6.5, but I feel like a 7 out of 10 is very deserving for the rating that Jack Daniel's deserves for something to sip straight, honestly. And I'm sure, like, the aged versions are even better. Let's go and find out how it is as a mixer. I'm slightly buzzed, I'm not gonna lie, y'all. Doesn't make a bad whiskey highball either. definitely very different tasting than what I'm used to. But that sort of, that sort of brown sugar comes through very distinctly. Ooh, yeah. I mean, like, this is a good mixer. I would say Jack Daniels is better as a mixer. Just based off that one sip. Ooh, that is nice. That is very nice. Yeah. No, Jack Daniels is a great mixer. It's a great mixer. Better to mix than to sip straight. I'm sure the aged series, like the 10-year and the 12-year and the 14-year Jack Daniels, I'm sure those are a bit better to sip straight, a bit more interesting kind of thing. As I said, I want to clarify, the flavor of Jack Daniels, it's not a bad flavor. It's just kind of stagnant. It's a kind of stagnant flavor. You might notice a little bit more just because you missed something, but the flavor doesn't actually change over time like it does with some other whiskeys. Not bad to sip straight, not a bad flavor by any means, just not the most interesting in the world. But interesting because it's my first ever time trying Jack Daniels, to me at least. But if it was what I drank routinely, it wouldn't be very interesting, I will acknowledge. As a mixer, though, man, it shines through. That sort of fruity flavor is there. That sort of brown sugar flavor is there. The caramel's kind of cut out, and the dark chocolate's kind of cut out. There's a little bit in there of both of those, but really not much. Really, frankly put, the main flavor I'm getting from this, besides the lemon carbonated water that I used as the majority of the mixer, is very much that of a brown sugar flavor with a little bit of that sort of fruity, apple-y, apricot-y sort of, taste going on from the Jack Daniels. I gotta admit, Jack Daniels is a mixer. Pretty solid, I ain't gonna lie. I'll give it a rating as a mixer once I'm done with this. I'll admit though, oh man, I just ashed on myself. I'll admit though, I kind of came into this video not sure how this was going to go. You know, I've heard a lot about Jack Daniels. It's very ubiquitous, but I've heard both a lot of good things and a lot of bad things kind of thing. And what I can say, now having tried Jack Daniels for the first time, is that a lot of the good things are overblown and a lot of the bad things are overblown as well, in my opinion. I've heard people talk about Jack Daniels when drinking it straight as being like the worst thing ever. It's not the worst thing ever. I've had worse. I've also had people talk about Jack Daniels as being, sorry, I'm getting more jumbled up. I am surprisingly buzzed. I don't know how I'm so buzzed. I've also heard people talk about Jack Daniels like it's the best thing ever. And I'm gonna be straight up. The classic variety, at least, is not the best thing ever. Pretty dang good as a mixer. Not bad to drink straight. But it ain't the best thing ever kind of thing. I had heard those alternating opinions. I had heard good things about Jack Daniels, bad things about Jack Daniels. People speak about Jack Daniels like it's the devil when drank straight. And people speak nothing but praises about it. The truth of the matter, as to be expected kind of thing, is that it's somewhere in the middle. It's somewhere in the middle. Jack Daniels, when drank straight, it's nothing too crazy, but it's not bad. It's not going to interest you if you're used to the taste of Jack Daniels. If you're not used to the taste of Jack Daniels, it's going to be very interesting, of course. But if you're used to the flavor, it's not going to interest you when you're drinking it. But is Jack Daniels a bad liquor to drink straight? No. It's overpriced for what it is, but it's not bad to drink straight. I was like, what is behind me? No, there's an ant on my screen. I was like, why is there an ant? Why is there a squirrel like right here? No, it was an ant on my screen. But the truth about Jack Daniels, it really is that it's somewhere in the middle kind of thing. It's not the best product I've ever had. It's certainly not the worst product I've ever had. But the truth of the matter is that it's Jack Daniels kind of thing. It tastes different than any other whiskey I've ever had. Probably just because I've never ever tried any other Tennessee whiskeys before. It's interesting because of that fact, but it's not an intriguing whiskey to drink aside from the fact that it's different than what I've tried before. But it's not bad. It's not bad. It's like overall rating wise, I'm going to give it a solid 8 out of 10. I'm going to give it a solid 8 out of 10, I'll acknowledge. Like, when drank straight, it's like a solid like 6.5 to 7 out of 10. As a mixer though, I think it's like a solid I gotta admit, with the right thing, I think a solid 9 out of 10, if not a 10 out of 10. So when combined, I think a very solid 8 out of 10. Kind of deserving. Yeah, Jack Daniels. Ain't so bad. Ain't so bad. I was pretty on the wall about how it was going to be coming into this. As I said, I heard a lot of good things. I heard a lot of bad things. I wasn't sure which was right. Turns out, in my opinion at least, neither were right. I think Jack Daniels really is right in the middle. It is a solid product that, yes, does rely on its name, especially for the price. But even if Jack Daniels wasn't a name brand, I still think it would be a solid product, just one that you definitely shouldn't pay $28.95 for 750 milliliters for. Jack Daniels being what it is, you can kind of go, okay, yeah, sure. If it wasn't a name brand, though, it wouldn't be worth the price, but it would still be a solid product, just not for the price. And that's kind of how I feel about Jack Daniels as a whole. It is, in my opinion, an 8 out of 10 whiskey. And I really, 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 really want to say it's a solid 8 out of 10 whiskey, but price. It's just too much for what it is. It really should be like $5 cheaper for 750 milliliters, in my opinion. Price not included, price not factored in, it's absolutely an 8 out of 10. Price included, though, to me at least, it's like a solid 7. It's like a solid 7, I would say. Lob off $7 and it'll be an 8. But overall, this has been a very, very, very interesting experience. As I said, I wasn't sure really what to expect from Jack Daniels kind of coming into this video. It ended up being different than I expected, kind of thing. I wasn't sure if it was going to be super rough or just kind of chemical tasting. I've had that from alcohol before. Looking at Bacardi Gold, that stuff is disgusting. But no sort of chemical taste, just a really nice whiskey flavor that's different than what I'm used to. And really, I think that's really the standout thing about this experience, is that the flavor of Jack Daniels, what I drank today, has been so different than what I'm used to getting from other whiskeys. That sort of fruity flavor is something that I haven't really experienced from other whiskeys before. As I said, I've gotten orange from one other whiskey, but nothing like the fruity flavor from Jack Daniels. Very interesting, very interesting. Excuse me. And I'm gonna go and stub this out. Overall, I gotta admit, Jack Daniels, it ain't so bad. And this has been, no question in my mind, a very, very, very interesting experience. And I am very, very, very glad to have had this experience today and to have tried Jack Daniels for the very first time. I'm not the most impressed by Jack Daniels, especially for the price that it is listed as. However, it ain't too bad. It ain't too bad. It's overpriced. I'm kind of beating a dead horse now, but I've said this multiple times. I'm buzzed. I'm kind of losing my train of thought and then regaining it and then losing it and then regaining it. Let me finish off the rest of this. Jack Daniels is pretty good as a mixer, though, I'm not going to lie. This has overall been a very interesting experience. Trying Jack Daniels for the first time was different than I thought it was going to be. One, just different flavor, different quality, different everything. I went into this with certain expectations, and Jack Daniels met and exceeded those expectations, but also completely subverted them at the same time. This was very interesting to have experienced. And I can definitely say I'm very glad that I tried Jack Daniels for the very first time today. I'm glad I tried Tennessee whiskey for the very first time today. It's different. I'm going to have to try more Tennessee whiskey in the future, and I'm going to have to see if Jack Daniels kind of tastes like it is because it's Jack Daniels, or if that's a sort of standard Tennessee whiskey flavor, that sort of appley or sort of fruity flavor kind of thing. I don't know if that's a sort of standard Tennessee whiskey flavor. I have no idea. But I'm curious to find out. I'm very curious to find out. Overall, gotta admit, my first ever experience with Jack Daniels has been a very solid one. I've really enjoyed myself. I enjoyed drinking it straight. Was nothing crazy, but I very much enjoyed drinking straight. The flavor was very different from what I've experienced before. When mixed into a carbonated water, it was also very good, if I do say so myself. I think Jack Daniel's is a fantastic mixer, just based off this one experience at least. I am very excited to try Jack and Coke in the future. Looking forward to doing that. And I'm looking forward to drinking the rest of my little bottle of Jack Daniel's that I bought for this video today. No complaints, that is for sure. And yeah, I think that's just about all I wanted to say for this video. Kind of covered my final thoughts scattered throughout the video, I'll acknowledge. Overall though, solid, overpriced, but solid nonetheless. Not too bad, not too bad. Jack Daniel's ain't too bad. I see why, besides just the nameplate, I see why it is regarded in any way, shape, or form. I see why. I see why people like it. I don't really see why people don't like it, besides the fact that it's not super interesting to drink, but that's probably what it is right there. But yeah, I see why people like Jack Daniel's. I think I see why people like it as a mixer as well. And yeah, overall, 8 out of 10. 8 out of 10 for the Jack Daniel's. Well, I think that's just about all I had to say for this video today. Gotta admit, no complaints on my behalf. I've thoroughly enjoyed myself, and I hope you guys have thoroughly enjoyed watching today's video. If you guys have, of course, like, subscribe, and make sure to check out my new poetry book, Poems to Read While Smoking Cigarettes. Link is in the comments and description down below. Make sure to go check out my new poetry book. It's available for $14.99 on Amazon. Highly recommend. Appreciate all y'all watching today's video. Hope you guys have enjoyed watching this video today. Let me know in the comments down below what you guys think of Jack Daniel's. Was what I said during this video accurate? Was I wrong in anything I said? What's your guys' opinion on Jack Daniel's? Let me know in the comments below. Appreciate y'all watching today's video. As said, like, subscribe, and until the next one, stay safe and peace, and have a great one.